right, 9 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Supervisor Townsend, and followed by a moment of silence.
Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. First item for today's board meeting is Board of Supervisors matters. I will start with Supervisor Townsend.
All right. Well, last week, in giving all the thanks and our little speeches, there were some people that I forgot that I wanted to acknowledge because I've been really impressed with staff. All the staff that's back here behind these walls have been very, very helpful in getting us up and running. And so I got to tell a few of you thank you in person, but if I didn't, just in general, thanks so much. And also department heads that I've met with have been very helpful, and all the way down to RMA, Sheriff, DA, Fire Chief, Charlie back there. Everybody's just been really helpful, and so thank you for helping to get me and us up to speed as we get into this. Had a few things this last week on the 9th, over at Harmony Magnet Academy over in Strathmore. We had our Academy of Engineering Advisory Board meeting. I've been on that for probably, I think, 8 years now. And I'm just really impressed with what they are doing with the students in connecting businesses with the classroom. I've been out and lectured myself several times, critiqued their projects, had students come in as interns, and I really love that model of education. And so anybody that you have out there, any students, I would encourage you to get them into these pathways type programs or linked learning type programs. And in fact, on the 11th was a Habitat for Humanity wall raising over in Porterville. It's the fourth home that's been worked on or built in Porterville. And again, we use students from the Pathways programs to do the plans for the people that are getting the homes, the homeowners. And so we had a young lady with her family will be the homeowners for this one in Porterville, and we're able to have the students who worked on the project in my office in Porterville come out along with some of the educators from Harmony and help with that wall raising and with that ceremony. So again, a great cause. I was able to meet also on the same day, on the 11th, with East Thule GSA, some of that group along with the city of Porterville to help get me up to speed for serving on that board with 2020 rapidly approaching. The groundwater sustainability plans will have to be put together and in place by that time, submitted to the state. And so that was a really good overview for myself and a couple of the city council members in Porterville. And today I'm going to run out to Rich Grove a little bit later this afternoon. Self-Help Enterprises is opening a Veracruz Village Learning Center. It could be a ribbon cutting out there, and I'll be happy to go out and join them and see what's going on in the metropolis of Rich Grove. Thank you.
Go Redskins.
There you go.
Supervisor Valero.
All right, awesome.
Redskins are the mascot for Rich Grove Elementary School, for the record.
Well, good morning, everyone. So matters for me, tomorrow, Wednesday, we'll be attending the Potterfield Mass Burial for those that have been either homeless, unidentified, could not afford. And so I encourage all of you out there to attend that very important event. I will also be attending the Dinuba Chamber Government Affairs Committee meeting, as mentioned last week. That takes place tomorrow as well. And then returning back to Visalia for the Agricultural Policy Advisory Committee meeting at 3. And then this Thursday, I have the Kings River East Groundwater Sustainability Agency meeting in Dinuba. And then the following week, given that we won't have a meeting next Tuesday, the Sunrise Rotary presentation. Or are we meeting next week? Yes,
we are not.
Oh, no. Okay, so the Sunrise Rotary presentation that I'll be giving on Tuesday. And then I was going to attend the TCAG Local Motion Awards next week, and I apologize for not being there next week. I was asked to serve on a committee that will be investing $1 million into Tulare, Fresno, and Kings County. This committee will be selecting nonprofits to receive $50,000 in support, along with technical assistance through the Latino Community Foundation. And so that meeting will be out in Fresno. And then that Friday, I will be attending the Dinuba Chamber of Commerce Awards, and I want to kind of announce them publicly here this morning. Miles Schutz, who's a retired Dinuba fire chief, will be getting the Distinguished Service Award. Councilwoman Maribel Reynosa will be the Junior Citizen, and then Senior Citizen will go to Diane Hayes. And then I also want to echo Townsend's remarks about the transition and the support that we received from staff, and it's been truly amazing. So thank you.
Supervisor Shucklian?
Yes, thank you. Last Wednesday, I attended, as I mentioned at our last meeting, the memorial for K-9 Bain with the Tulare Police Department. It was a very well-attended and much-needed service for K-9 Bain. And the Visalia Police Officers Foundation has already raised enough money to replace the K-9 for the city of Tulare, and also to outfit the K-9s in Tulare County with ballistic vests. So that's a great thing that they did. Last Thursday, I was a part of a committee for a visitor center. As many of you know, the 99 in Caldwell Valley Children's Hospital, the developers are dedicating some land there to the county. And I'm working with various stakeholders throughout the city and the county to see if we can't pull together folks to have a visitor center, a resource center for folks traveling the 99 to hopefully get them to discover Tulare County. So I'm on that committee. Tomorrow I have a homeless task force committee meeting, also an emergency shelter meeting, and Thursday evening, Habitat for Humanity is having their annual meeting. I also want to mention that on Saturday night, I attended the 36th annual Public Safety Night. Every year, the Knights of Columbus puts on this event, and they celebrate those folks who are at our service: law enforcement, CHP, probation, DA's office, Visalia PD, and fire. And I just want to say that it's a great event, and especially at times like these, we need to show our appreciation to our first responders. So I want to congratulate Deputy Josh Lujan from the Sheriff's Office, Deputy DA Noel Nayesh, if I said that right, from the DA's office. Mr. Ward, I just saw you sneak. Is that right, Tim? Tim was there. Also, Supervising Probation Officer Kimberly Mendonca, and Captain Jonathan Roberts from TCFD. These folks they're all nominated and voted on by their peers, I believe, correct, Charlie, within the departments, and recognized at this Public Safety Night. So just want to say congratulations to them again.
Supervisor Vanderpool?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I wanted to go over a few happenings in and around the Tulare area that I will be involved with coming up these next couple of weeks. On Wednesday at 1 o'clock, the Tulare Health Resources Group will be having a meeting at the Tulare Public Library that I will be speaking at and attending. Leadership Tulare will be having their County Day this Thursday right here in these board chambers at 8:15. On Thursday morning/afternoon, lunchtime, the View Partnership will be having their Celebrate the Success luncheon on Thursday, and specifically at that event, I will be accepting an award on behalf of the Friends of Allensworth, who were unable to attend, for their energy efficiency improvements in that community. AMVETS California will be having their annual convention at the Visalia Convention Center this Saturday morning. I will be speaking at that event and welcoming everyone to beautiful downtown Visalia.
Just so you know, AMVETS, they're not veterinarians, they're...
Okay, thanks. It's AMVETS, but that's why I said AMVETS, okay. American Veterans. Right. Okay, thanks. And then that evening, Saturday night, I will have the privilege of being the MC at the Tipton Community Awards Banquet, which this year is specifically going to be honoring the youth of Tipton that have made a positive impact in the community. Look forward to that event. maybe a heads up to KTAAA that we have a meeting scheduled for Monday at 10 o'clock, which happens to be Martin Luther King Day and a holiday. So I look forward to attending that meeting at 10 o'clock on a county holiday. We are going to reschedule it. So okay, great. So as soon as I look and get that email, I'll make sure I update my calendar. On the 23rd of next week, there will be a retirement board meeting at 8:30 that I will be attending, and TCAG will be having their local motion awards luncheon on January 24th. That is upcoming, but as I was stating earlier, I'm not going to be able to attend that. I did schedule an appointment about 6 months ago with a dentist at 12 o'clock. I always try to do my dental appointments at noon and skip lunch that day, but not for me that I'm worried about. I actually take my 4-year-old son, and I'm the only one that has the power to get him to sit still for the dentist. So look forward to that appointment as well, and not to be too personal either. And then on January 25th, which is a Friday evening at 6 o'clock, the Tulare Chamber of Commerce will also be having their annual awards banquet. And since Supervisor Valero acknowledged the winners in Dinuba, I want to make sure that I throw a positive shout out to the winners in Tulare. The Man of the Year was Kevin Northcraft. The Woman of the Year was Shay Goen. Craig Smith and Associates was the Small Business of the Year. Rosa Brothers Milk Company was the Large Business of the Year, and they make great flavored milk if anyone's interested. Anthony Moreno was the Male Youth of the Year. Magali Mercado was the Female Youth of the Year. And Grandma's House was the Nonprofit of the Year for the Tulare Chamber of Commerce Annual Awards. And then lastly, one other meeting that I wanted to highlight, which I'm sure Supervisor Crocker will talk about, he's the chair of this organization as well, is the TCAG board meeting will happen on January 28th at 1 o'clock in Farmersville. And that, my chairman, is it for the meetings I wanted to cover during Board of Supervisors matters. And I turn it back to you.
Mr. Vice Chairman. Tomorrow I've got a RCRC board meeting. We're going to be looking at electing some new members to the executive committee outside of the officers, looking at the governor's proposal. I did send the rural rundown that RCRC publishes to our CAO to distribute, so any department heads that are interested in seeing that, it does I think a very good job at synthesizing what was proposed and as it relates to our counties, and you don't have to read pages and pages and pages. You can just focus on what your department's needs are. And I'll make sure and get that out to the board, the rest of the board too. I forgot to do that. Thursday is my first air board meeting, and I had some orientation already. We're looking at there's some new incentives that the air board is interested in utilizing, and I think it will be a great help for us, is providing a new incentive for emergency vehicles, specifically fire engines. And so I don't know that necessarily works for all areas, but if there's any type of incentive to get some new engines for our county, I think that would be a tremendous help to upgrade some of our fleet. Just to highlight one of the items that we'll be discussing. Saturday, I will be attending the Latino Leadership and Policy Foundation's annual lunch in Los Angeles. Next week, I, as chair of the San Joaquin Valley Insurance Authority, I will be having a subcommittee meeting or committee meeting with our vice chair, Supervisor Mendez, to talk about strategic planning for the upcoming year. We'll also have next week our local motion awards, which TCAG honors various projects from agencies. Agencies nominate different transportation-related projects, whether it's transit or active transportation, sidewalks, bike lanes, trails, or just regular good old road projects. So we'll have an award ceremony for that. We're having one of the California Transportation Commissioners, Paul Van Kononenberg, will be our guest speaker. and he's out of Stanislaus County, been very active in their transportation. He'll give us an update on the general state of affairs for transportation throughout the state. Let's see, which day are we looking at? The 25th of January, I have a San Joaquin Valley Policy Council meeting. This is the 8 Valley counties, their COGs, their Council of Governments. Supervisor Vanderpool mentioned TCAG. That will be in Farmersville on the 28th. I also have an East Cahuilla Groundwater Sustainability meeting that day. And then just one report from a meeting that happened last week. The San Joaquin Valley Water Infrastructure Authority met on Friday. We, even though former Supervisor Worthley is retired from the board, he can't get away from public service, so he was added to be the public member for that board. So he's if for whatever reason you're sick and you want to see him, then you can see him monthly at that meeting. But we're working on the final steps of transitioning the Prop 1 application over to the investors group. And so after that happens, I imagine that group will be slowing down the progress and meeting as the investors who are interested in actually funding Temperance Flat will be taking the primary role as it relates to advocating at the state, advocating at the federal levels for additional dollars for receiving permits. And our phase, as far as what the 5 counties did, will really be taking a kind of a backstage approach. Our efforts were to get the application before the Water Commission. We received the $171 million allocation. So our part is essentially done now. It's up to the investors, the irrigation districts, municipal interests to take it to that next step to actually get it done. So with that, we will move to public comments. Any member of the public that would like to speak before the board on matters not on the agenda but still within our purview, please come forward. Mr. Washam with some reading material.
Thank you. Mike Washam, Associate Director, RMA. Today,
Thank you.
pleased to present you with the RMA calendar. This was done last year, a couple months ago, as a team building exercise. Make sure we get the CAO and County Council as well. And it worked out very well. We kind of themed it with roads to Hollywood. I just highlight a couple features. As the front cover is our road yard, recreating that slow motion walk to the spacecraft in Armageddon. Instead of space helmets, they have their hard hats and jumpsuits on. And in August, who can forget Jack Tavern. Jack Tavern is the detective in Speed, and he's portrayed by Albert Barragan, our transit director. And then in the month of September, our director, Reed Schenke, does a great performance of Forrest
I thought it was
Gump.
Tom Hanks. I did.
So anyway, I just wanted to present that with you. This was done with our own no funds out of the general fund. It was just took some photos, printed on. We fronted the money, and the staff that wanted to purchase those were just reimbursing private money that had. So anyway, we've already got some ideas for next year. Staff really likes it. We're thinking about maybe doing something towards television, including we're thinking about The Simpsons as one of the things, a family portrait. We're going to have Aaron Bach as Bart. And we're getting some ideas. We're getting some ideas put together, and it was a good time, and all of the employees really enjoyed it. So anyway, thanks.
Just, Mr. Chair, just a suggestion for the future. Maybe you can put the calendar on the PowerPoint screens in the future so the audience can
Sure.
Get the pleasure of enjoying your fantastic calendar.
Any other public comments? I hope risk management isn't going to be concerned about some of these pictures.
Hi, good morning. Juliette Webb, Human Services Director at Health and Human Services Agency and Kings Tulare Area Agency on Aging Director. And I would like to just get up to clarify that the meeting, the next governing board meeting, is the following Monday, January 28th at 10 a.m. And we look forward to welcoming Supervisor Valero to the KTAAA board at that time. So I wanted to
I had it on
apologize
my
that the appointment
calendar
had
the
not
way
been
that we
taken
said
off
it
your
last year.
calendars.
Location?
It is here.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Juliet.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I will close the public comments and we will take up our consent calendar, items 3 through 11. Any member of the board like to pull any item from consent? Have any questions? Any member from the public interested in pulling any items, questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So I make a motion to approve items 3 through 11.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Valero, second by Supervisor Sheklian. Any further comments? If not, please vote. And the motion carries unanimously. We'll now go to our untimed items and begin with item 12, a request from the General Services Agency to approve an amendment to agreement number 28694 with Central Valley Business Forms to increase the agreement amount by $150,000 per year from $200,000 to $350,000.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Board,
Morning.
Council. I'm Art Ariola. I oversee print and mail as the Division Manager, General Services. Currently in the print shop, we print in-house a variety of forms, as you can imagine, government. We print business cards, large format, mid-size large format, ag crop report, and certainly our budget book. Every now and then a department will come and tell us they're considering going paperless in a particular area, and I remind them that they're probably going to need a form for that.
I like paper.
Thank you.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Some of the specialty printing that we have would be like a raised letter, stationary business card, very large banners, colored banners on certain substrates like vinyl that we couldn't produce. Many promotional items, that would be cups, pens, anything like that we can't do. There's a lot of printing that's going on, and more our departments are becoming more and more aware of their options when it comes to promotional items. Biggest users of those would be probably the HHSA, DA, and the sheriff. I happen to bring one of the things that we did for Tim and his group. This DA, he really complimented it, but we didn't actually do this. We just handled it for him, and Central Valley Business Forms did it. But we'd like to continue to do that. I believe that the increase is because more and more departments have been directed to us because we already have a contracted agreement and prices. And we also assist with the process, make sure they're getting what they want along the way. It was done through a RFP, so again, we have contracted prices through them. We also want consistency. We want to see our logo look the same on stationery wherever it is, so that always looks nice. We've had a problem with that in the past. Currently, we are 50% through our fiscal year, and we have already exhausted 90% of the agreed amount. And so we're needing the increase to make sure that we're able to service our departments. The options would be that would be forcing the departments when we're done with the agreed amount to go out and get their own POs, first of all, and then go out and get these services without the assistance of having contracted prices. I certainly would like to avoid that if possible. Now, these are elective services, so it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to go out and spend the money. I believe that covers it.
Good. Any questions from the board?
I'll just make a comment. Art, I know you outside of the county family a little bit, but this is the first time I've actually seen you do a presentation to the Board of Supervisors in the 10 years I've been on the board. So the county does have a print shop, and Art, you're the guy. So welcome here to the board. I think that's fantastic. Actually, I wanted to make sure that we had this presentation, one, because I like you, and two, because this is a significant change over what we've done in the past, and I think it's important that you talk about your services that you provide, and I really do appreciate all the detail that you've given in your presentation. So thank you very much. I'm very supportive and appreciate the job you do.
Any other questions, comments? Members of the public, questions, comments? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second the motion.
By Supervisor Shuckland, second by Supervisor Vanderpool. Please cast your votes. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. I'd like to take this opportunity to tell you I just enjoyed driving around the county and seeing all the work that we're doing these days. I appreciate your leadership and your vision. Have a great day.
See you in
Thank
10
you.
years.
Yeah.
Next, we'll go to item 13, request from the treasurer to approve an agreement with Bloomberg Finance LP for the use of Bloomberg Terminal in the amount of $27,000 per year for automatic one-year term renewals unless 60-day written notice.
This we have
Given by
photos
the
for.
county.
This we have PowerPoints for.
Mr. Auditor, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Controller.
Morning.
Morning.
Pleasure to be here. It is a mouthful, Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector. I would note of the, I think it was at like 58 counties in California, about a dozen of us share those offices, the Auditor, Controller combined with the Treasurer, Tax Collector, and it works well for us, and we have a number of efficiencies that come from that. It is a mouthful, and it's interesting when you talk to people internally versus externally, or internal customers versus our external customers. They're not going to say Auditor, Controller, Treasurer, Tax Collector. If you're an internal department, I am the auditor. It's interesting. Where your pain point is determines how you refer to me. Oops, there we go. And I think this may represent how people feel about the Tulare County Auditor. That's Mr. Ebenezer Scrooge, who has gone to see his auditor, and his auditor has asked for his receipt for buying a turkey for Mr. Cratchit. If you are external, I am the tax collector, and I think this might come to mind in people's view of how they view the property tax collector. Fortunately, today, I am neither the auditor nor the tax collector, but I am the treasurer. Today, I could talk about what we do in the treasurer's office and a tool that we hope to employ to improve our return on investments. And then, simply put, in the treasury, we invest the idle funds of the county, the schools, and the special districts. We manage a portfolio of approximately $1.5 billion. In managing these funds, we follow what we call the SLY rule, S-L-Y, SLY. S stands for safety. Our main goal is to preserve the capital. So if we are entrusted with funds, we will ensure, or the expectation is that we will return those funds to the county, the school, and the special districts with a little return on top. The L is the liquidity, so the access to the funds. The county may receive some state grants, some state funds on a Monday, and by Friday we need to pay for payroll or a capital project. So there's the expectation that when I put my funds into the county pool, I can quickly retrieve those funds for expenses. Once we have met those requirements, the S and the L, the safety and the liquidity, we now look at yield, or return on the investment. So safety and liquidity are our primary concerns, and within those constraints, we try our best to increase our yield. So we are different from other investment institutions, different systems. The retirement system from, I don't know, day traders or from fund managers. And that difference comes from, again, that safety and liquidity, but also from the types of investments that we can purchase. We are not going to have negative returns, whereas those other entities may have negative returns in a fiscal year. That's not going to happen. And to guard against those negative returns, we are limited in the types of investments we may purchase as well as the duration of the investments. Now, those limitations come from state law as well as local policies. So and also our commitment to that safety and liquidity. So whereas the retirement portfolio or Tessera could be into real estate or in currency or stocks or commodities, hedge funds, the county treasury pool will not be participating and has not in those types of products. We are really limited to what we call fixed income, such things as bonds, certificates of deposits, treasury bills. The idea here is when we purchase an investment, it's a fixed income. We know there's going to be interest rate associated with that investment. We know it'll mature in, say, 1 year from now, at the most 5 years from now, and we know what that interest will pay. So we know when we buy it, we know if we hold on to it until maturity, we know how much we will receive. So we're limited in what we can buy. We're also limited into the duration. So we can only purchase bonds, say, out to 5 years. So we're not buying stocks, we're buying bonds. So there's a trade-off with your risk versus your reward. We, by our nature, will take less risk. And because of that, the reward will be smaller. But if the vertical axis and the horizontal axis represents the risk and the reward, our reward, if the reward is where those two lines meet, if that's zero, we're never going to have a reward that's to the left of that y-axis. We will always be on the right side of the reward. No negative returns. This means less fluctuation, less volatility, but at the same time, our returns may be lower, but they are safer. Additionally, we have an oversight committee that's comprised of county officials, school officials, and special district representatives. We have over 30 years of experience in the investment division dealing with government investments. We have certified members of our staff regarding fixed incomes. And to give you an idea of what our investment portfolio looks like, we are in U.S. treasuries, in agencies, corporate notes, bonds, and cash. So these are very liquid, very safe investments. And this is our portfolio as of December 31st.
Federal investments in the federal government are considered safe? Even when they're shut down?
What's that?
Even when they're shut down?
Even when they're shut down.
Okay.
AAA rated security.
Okay, good.
We are not alone in our efforts. We are assisted by PFM. That's a long-standing relationship we've had. They manage 2/3 of our investments, where we manage about 1/3. They handle the investments that are maturing from 1 year out to 5 years out. And then our staff handles those investments that are maturing within a year. Recently, we went through an RFP process for investment services, and after that process, we remained with PFM, but we were able to reduce our fees and save money there. This, just to give you an idea of what makes up the pool, or who are the participants of the pool. We have the county general funds, about 16%, but when you bring in all the other county funds, when you add those together, it's about 38%. The schools, districts make up over half of the pool participants, and then special districts are a fraction of the portfolio. So recently we are put our efforts into improving our operations to reduce costs and improve our rates of return. One of those is our cash flow. We have improved our cash flow, and this allows us to decrease our idle funds, so the funds just sitting in the bank with minimal returns, we're able to push those out into investments and increase our returns. Just by where we are in the market, rates have been rising, so we're seeing increased return on our investments. We've are working with new brokers that give us better yields. As I said before, with a new PFM contract, we reduced our costs. We are in the process of purchasing some hardware that will allow us to get credit on our funds quicker from the bank. We're also working on trainings and certifications. So that brings us to where we are today. This is a Bloomberg terminal. This would be a new hardware for us. It is the industry standard used by other counties within the state. We recently took a trip to Kern County where they're using Bloomberg. Also, Fresno County uses Bloomberg as well as other large counties. Bloomberg provides a wealth of real-time market data, so we are better informed as we make investments. There's a repository of investment data related to yield curves, to ratings of investments, to financial statements, all in one place. We also get a more accurate picture of what we should be paying for investments as we go to our brokers. We are more informed so that we know we're getting a good deal. So that should lower costs to the portfolio, and so that we're not overcharged by our brokers. Additionally, there are analysis tools where we can input our portfolio data into Bloomberg and analyze potential investments. We're able to look at if the proposed investment is a good fit for a portfolio in terms of its rating, its maturity, its security, the type of investment. We're able to do some complex analysis that we are not able to currently do. So it's another tool, a more sophisticated tool in our toolbox. So with the improved information and analysis, we can conceivably increase the returns on our investments by, I think, at least 1 or 2 basis points, which is 1/100th of a percent, and that would be equivalent to $400,000 to $800,000 to the investment pool. So we are not, I want to emphasize, we're not day traders. We're not going to be trading through Bloomberg. It's going to give us more information, better data, more timely data, and we are limited in the types of investments we can be in. We'll have better data. It's a better tool, and we should be able to increase our investment returns. We do a good job now. We have a good team, but this will allow us to do even better than how we're doing. And it helps us in our, again, going back to the security, the liquidity, and yield, it'll help us in terms of analyzing investments to make sure they're secure and being able to increase our yield. And the savings from using this product should pay for the product itself, which is a $27,000 annual contract. So with that, that's my presentation.
Members of the board, questions, comments? Supervisor Vanderpool?
One question for you, Cass. Thank you for the presentation and the details. Very helpful. How about the people operating the terminal? Is there going to be special training that's provided? Do you have the folks identified? I just want to make sure that, if we get the technology, that it also will come with the training, or we will go and seek the training to make sure that we're maximizing the use of this expense.
Great question. We have our Chief Investment Officer, Frank Gario. We'll have the Bloomberg terminal. Bloomberg comes and does training, as well as the training for the terminal. There's certifications that you can get to improve your efficiencies in using that terminal. So we'll seek to do that also.
Questions, comments, members of the public? I had a question about this tool, and I'm glad you presented, because when I read it, what I read, I think I misunderstood what the tool was actually going to be, and so when you had the picture, I thought you should have had a picture of Mr. Gecko for this rather than just the water money. So the Bloomberg tool will be used for the third of the portfolio that you guys manage within that year, and PFM will still manage separately the remainder?
That's correct.
I'm glad. I was a little leery just because I think it's important that that as a county that we have a lot of opportunities to increase revenue and to be more efficient, but when that's at the expense of the private sector, I think that's where we need to be very cautious. I don't see that this is doing that, and so I don't have any issue with this. Entertain a motion if there's no further comments or
Chair, I would move for approval if there's nothing further.
Second.
Moved by Supervisor Vanderpool, seconded by Supervisor Townsend. Please cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously. We'll go to our last untimed item, item 14, request from HHSA to do a lot of stuff, but particularly discuss the No Place Like Home over-the-counter program.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board of Supervisors, Mr. Britt, Ms. Peterson. I'm Tim Dorick, Mental Health Director for Health and Human Services Agency, and we are here this morning to discuss legislation that is commonly referred to as No Place Like Home. There's three basic tenets of the No Place Like Home: mental health, homelessness, and collaboration with the community. So we have three presenters that are going to walk you through this process this morning. We have Michelle Cruz, who is our Mental Health Services Agency Manager for HHSA, Charles Felix, who's HHSA's Homeless Initiatives Program Coordinator, and from the community we have Betsy McGovern Garcia, who's the Program Director for Real Estate Development Self-Help Enterprises. And with that, I will hand it off to Michelle Cruz.
Thank you, Dr. Durick. So we are going to good morning to the Chair Crocker, Supervisors, County Administrator, County Council. Charles, also known as Chaz, Betsy and I have condensed a rather complex program, so feel free to ask questions as we move along. We will be walking you through the background of No Place Like Home, the components, and then our proposed use. So the No Place Like Home grant program was introduced as Assembly Bill 1618 in 2016. It was reaffirmed in the last election as Proposition 2. It is administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development, and it provides $1.8 billion for permanent supportive housing. This $1.8 billion is for the development, acquisition, remodeling, etc. of permanent supportive housing projects. One note on the allowable uses for No Place Like Home is that it is mainly for capital. It does not include a set-aside for operations. So the target population is focused on those persons living with serious mental illness and experiencing homelessness or at risk of chronic homelessness. And it is because of this and that, Dr. Durick, as he said, we are crossing many facets of our agency and our community. So within Tulare County, from the 2018 point-in-time count, there were 790 homeless persons. Nearly 70%, or 650, were unsheltered at that time. Approximately 31% reported mental health challenges, and approximately 26% reported substance use challenges. So there are three components with No Place Like Home. First, there is the Technical Assistance Program. This was approved by the Board of Supervisors on June 5th of 2018, allowing Tulare County HHSA to apply for and receive the funds of $100,000. These funds can be used for activities related to No Place Like Home, such as applying for the competitive portion or updating the county homelessness plan. Second, there is the over-the-counter or the non-competitive portion. Funding for this portion is allocated for each county based on their homeless point-in-time count. There is an application requirement as the funds are released on a first-come, first-served basis from the pool of $200 million for the statewide. So Tulare County's allocation for that is $925,621. And then lastly, there is the competitive program. The majority of the funding is available through this competitive program, approximately $1.8 billion statewide. And Tulare County will compete with other medium-sized counties for this funding. Those medium-sized counties are counties with populations between 200,000 and 750,000. And the funding for the competitive portion is awarded over multiple rounds. And then both the over-the-counter and the competitive program funding are for projects 5 units and greater, will be distributed as 55-year term loans. And so with that, I will hand it over to Chaz to just take you through the requirements.
Thanks, Michelle. Good morning, Chairman of the Board, members of the Board, CEO, and County Council. Again, I'm Chaz Felix, Homeless Coordinator for Health and Human Services. Thanks again for having us this morning. I'd like to talk a little bit more about the No Place Like Home threshold requirements. First, I want to start by saying that we're very excited about No Place Like Home. We think the program has a lot of potential. At the same time, I think it's very important for us to continue to build collaborations, to build partnerships within the community. And so I think we're pretty fortunate to have Betsy and Self-Help here today. They do tremendous work in the community for low-income development housing projects, and I think they have a strong vision for implementing No Place Like Home. So I think you'll be pleased to hear from her in a couple minutes on plans for that. Another component of No Place Like Home is the supportive services plan for funded projects. I think it's definitely key for anything funded through No Place Like Home, any permanent supportive housing project, to have a strong and robust services plan. And so from the perspective of the county and Health and Human Services, we're actively looking for new avenues to provide our services to the community. So we're definitely excited about No Place Like Home because that really just gives us an additional way to carry out our mission and objectives. And additionally, another requirement for No Place Like Home is a recent county plan to address homelessness. And for this, we're using the Kings Tulare Alliance's 10-year plan to end homelessness. I think it's called Connecting the Dots. As our interim plan, I think a lot of stakeholders, a lot of interested parties in the community are interested in a more comprehensive plan moving forward. But in the interim, I think we think that connecting the dots is a good framework for moving things forward. And so we'll be using that to meet this threshold requirement. In terms of proposed funding utilization, we have a few concrete ideas. For the competitive program, we're seeking authorization to apply to up to $15 million for this. I think it's important to have an amount like that to provide some flexibility for developers to come to the table and to really have that to work with to make some projects that are robust and meaningful and really make sense for Tulare County. Additionally, we have the over-the-counter program that Michelle mentioned. We do have a concrete idea for that. It's in partnership with Self-Help Enterprises, and with that being said, I will hand it off to Betsy, who will speak a little bit further to Self-Help and their involvement in this initiative. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. As was mentioned, my name is Betsy McGovern-Garcia. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development at Self-Help Enterprises. I think everyone on the board is familiar with Self-Help Enterprises as an organization, so I won't spend any time on that. But if you do have any questions about our experience or specifically our experience with permanent supportive housing, I'd be happy to answer those questions. The request before you this morning is for $500,000 towards the Sierra Village 2 project. Sierra Village is a project located in Dinuba at Davis and Crawford. We have already completed phase 1, which is 44 units. It opened in July. And so the pictures you see at the bottom are the actual constructed project. Phase 2 is an extension of that project, so we'll have the same architecture, the same sixplex building, tuck under parking, look and feel that we've developed in phase 1. We're requesting funding specifically to set aside a minimum of 5 No Place Like Home units. And the reason why we're requesting $500,000 instead of the full amount is that the county is more competitive by leveraging the non-competitive over-the-counter funds with the competitive funds. And so we're coming in and requesting just a portion of the non-competitive funds so that the county has the ability to use the balance towards a competitive application in the future. We would be coordinating with the county for extensive wraparound services, so connecting residents with mental health services, substance abuse services, other services that the county is already currently offering. As Chaz mentioned, this provides a great opportunity to stabilize individuals who have experienced homelessness with mental health challenges and provide a mechanism to deliver services to those residents. The project does include integration with quote-unquote traditional housing. I hate to use those phrases because really the goal here is fully integrated housing where everyone is seen as an equal community member. But that phrase just generally means that those units will not be restricted to a specific subpopulation. The over-the-counter program and placement of funds at Sierra Village in Dinuba will really allow us to develop a template for this partnership. It allows us to develop templates for the Memorandum of Understanding, for the delivery of services on site, and templates for the supportive services plan. Self-Help Enterprises is currently working on 2 No Place Like Home projects, one in the city of Madera and one in the county of Mariposa. So we are actively studying the program, developing those templates, and really putting together best practices. If we have a resident who is causing issues with our good neighbor policies, who isn't meeting the hygiene standards of the project, we don't want to go with our zero tolerance traditional approach. Instead, we would engage the county, we would engage case management, and we would work through those challenges. The end goal really is to keep individuals who have experienced homelessness successfully housed in permanent housing in the long term. The investment of these non-competitive over-the-counter funds allow us to leverage other resources. For the Sierra Village Phase 2 project, we have already secured funding from the State Housing and Community Development, HCD, through the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program. We have funding committed for the project through the Affordable Housing Program, through the Federal Home Loan Bank, and also have funding committed through the San Joaquin Valley Air Pollution Control District for this project. Not only is the project a housing project, but it's got higher densities, bike lanes, sidewalks, van pool, and free transit passes. And so it also serves as a greenhouse gas mitigation approach within the community of Dinuba. We'd like to continue this conversation. As I mentioned, we're discussing or we're applying for other No Place Like Home competitive projects. We think that there is a tremendous opportunity in Visalia and Porterville to pursue these funds, concentrate permanent supportive housing units in the area of the county where there's a higher prevalence of homelessness, and really use these funds as an opportunity to leverage other resources to build a larger number of units. As you're aware, part of the solution for addressing homelessness is permanent supportive housing and also general affordable housing, so families with extremely low incomes that are at risk of becoming homeless can access those resources. So we think this is just one small component of a larger strategy where Self-Help Enterprises would like to partner with the county to really develop additional housing and start making some progress towards addressing homelessness. And with that, I think I will, do you want me to turn it back? Okay, thank you.
So with that, the request before the board today, we are seeking authorization to apply for both the over-the-counter and the competitive portions of the No Place Like Home grant opportunity, and would take any questions from the board.
Questions, comments from the board?
Well, one question that I had, but Betsy, you answered it, and that was the potential of units like what are happening in Dinuba, in Visalia, and Porterville. So that's being looked at. Dr. Dirk, can you tell folks what our current permanent supporting housing it looks like, what we have currently?
Yes, we currently have our East Tulare Avenue cottages, which is 22 beds, and we're about to open permanent supported housing in Porterville and in Tulare, which will add an additional 26 beds. We have transitional living sites, but the importance is to get people through the transitional living sites to permanent supported housing, because then that's their home, and it can be their home forever.
I would just like to say first, thank you to the county and Self-Help for your work on this much-needed service. I'm excited about the opportunity to build on our homelessness agenda for the county. And again, thank you for the first phase potentially being in Dinuba, but also being able to be replicated elsewhere, as Supervisor Shucklian mentioned. As I was doing research on the No Place Like Home, I also noticed that along with adults with serious illness, I found that children are also included, and children with severe emotional disorders and their families or persons who require care as well.
Yes, that is true, and that is something that is different. This includes families, so it can be the child that actually is the identified consumer of mental health services, and we can still house the family.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I just have another comment. I forgot to mention it during my supervisor's comments, so it fit in well. I want to remind folks that on the 24th of January is Project Homeless Connect. That will be in Visalia, Tulare, and Hanford from 8:30 to 1:30. And then on Friday the 25th, it will be in Porterville from 8:30 to 1:30. Hi, Michelle. I see you back there. Michelle with the Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance. It's an opportunity for folks to connect with services. There are a lot of various services that will be there at the Project Homeless Connect. And I also, is this when you're doing the point in time count also? Michelle, can you just come up and kind of talk a little bit about that so folks know what it is and how important it is? Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and Supervisors. My name is Michelle Smith. I'm the Executive Director of the Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance. And as Supervisor Shucklian mentioned, we are hosting 4 Project Homeless Connect events next Thursday, so we are a little stressed out right now. But there we'll be hosting 2 in Tulare County on Thursday and then 1 on Friday, as you mentioned, in Porterville. Those events are held in conjunction with the point in time count, which is a federally mandated effort across the country. Those, what we would liken to a census, must happen in the last 10 days of January, so we can pick any time that works for our community. The thought is that most people will be seeking shelter during that time so that it's easier to count folks during that time. In conjunction with Project Homeless Connect, we are also doing street outreach efforts. Those will begin, they start the week before, so this week we'll be starting and conducting outreach to folks, letting them know about the event. We also partner with Transit to offer free transportation to and from the event for folks so they can get there. We also partner with outreach vans to bring folks who are unable to access a bus, perhaps because of a pet or other large belongings. The Saturday after the event, we'll be doing a street outreach effort in Porterville, and the following week we'll be hitting the rest of the areas of known hotspots to be able to count folks who were unable or interested in attending the event. And then we look to have our report out sometime late spring or early summer. But we will have the numbers much quicker than that, but we'll also be looking more in depth at subpopulations, trends, things like that, and that takes a little bit longer.
Thank you, Michelle. That's all I had. I just want to follow up with that. You know, a lot of folks wonder what cities and counties are doing for the homeless situation. And I think today kind of gives an example as we're doing a lot. And we're working with a lot of different partners, which is, again, going to be one of the big pieces of, and I always say this, we're not going to end homelessness, but at least give those that are experiencing homelessness, that need shelter and need the permanent housing, need services, if we can find those folks and reel them in, then we're doing our job. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'd just like to mention the warming center that opened in Visalia is already very close to capacity. So it does show that folks are interested in accessing a warm, safe place to be. We just need those places to put folks. So thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chairman.
I had a couple of just comments for Dr. Durick. One, I just want to appreciate and thank Supervisor Shucklian for her participation on the county's behalf on the task force for homelessness. That's not something that I personally have been very involved with, but I appreciate her leadership on that group to make sure that we continue to have a focus on this, because even though I'm not directly involved with it, it's something that's very important that we stay engaged and involved. I will say the connecting the dots plan that was submitted as part of this request is a 10-year plan, and it's older than a decade, and I don't know that we're any better off than when we were when that was started. So we've got to look at some realistic things as far as how do we define success. And I think Supervisor Shucklian made some good points. We're not going to completely eliminate homelessness, but how do we get services and provide services to people that actually want them? And then I would just encourage staff to also update that information. I know it says that it's updated, but a lot of the information is from 2011, and so it's not really up to date. So it gives a general picture of our homeless issue, but it's really not that useful as I look at it from my standpoint. So with that, the only other request as far as CAO is I would personally be interested in having a broader discussion on homelessness as an upcoming workshop, just for my benefit. I don't know how the other supervisors to have a more in-depth discussion just on what's going on with it, maybe get a little more deeper on all the facets that's happening, and if that's okay with the rest of the board. I don't have any particular date in mind, but
I think that's a great idea. I think, some of those Tuesdays that we're not having meetings and it was talked about doing the work session type things, I think that would be very important. I just received an email, and I was, this could maybe be discussed at a future, because it probably takes a lot of time. I understand, our new governor is really touting affordable housing. He's having a roundtable tomorrow in San Jose to lay out some proposals to tackle the housing crisis. So maybe by that time we'll have a little bit more information from Sacramento also. So I would be in support of that.
Likewise. And just a general comment, I know that Supervisor Shucklian represents the board on the homeless task force, and I think that each of us represent the board on various different committees and organizations. And I do think the work session format's a great format to really enlighten the rest of the board members as an individual supervisor or as a committee or organization as to what they are doing, and bring us all up to speed. So I think that's a very good idea. I was just generally curious, especially with the governor coming forward, encouraging more affordable housing to be constructed. What are the costs for the construction per square foot of affordable housing in Tulare County?
I'll have to look at that.
Well, and I asked Betsy, and for Betsy to come back up, I want to make a general point that I think needs to be made. The solution to homelessness obviously is a roof over people's head, right? And we want to get people into homes where they can lead productive lives and all of these things. But at the crux of this is what does it cost to build affordable housing in Tulare County? And we are very fortunate to have a partner like Self-Help. But when you look at the rules, the regulations that must be followed, and these are state-created rules and regulations, whether it's efficiency standards, et cetera, that drive up the cost of housing. And I just think it's important for people to be aware what it costs to create affordable housing, even right here in our county. So for Betsy, if that could be addressed, that'd be great.
Yes, thank you. So this is always the elephant in the room when we bring any project forward, because it is so tremendously expensive. With the economic recovery and people starting to build again, that really has just compounded the issue. We had one site in Lindsay where a contractor from the Bay Area drove up and promised the framer that if they got in the truck and followed them, they would double their pay, and all of the workers got in their trucks and left the site in the middle of framing. And so we are in a very acute situation of labor shortages and increasing construction costs. We are typically seeing costs around $220 a square foot, which when I say those numbers around our CEO, Tom Collishaw, he falls out of his chair because he's been with our organization for over 30 years, and it's just astounding when you think about those types of numbers. I will say that the quality of the units that we are constructing do really lend themselves to long-term sustainability. So we are putting solar PV on our projects that offsets not only the common area electrical loads, but also all of the residential tenant loads. And so someone coming into the project will likely only have an electricity bill of $10 a month. And that tends to support the long-term success of our families in making that affordable. We are still frequently required to exceed Title 24 in our grant and funding applications, which means as we trend towards zero net energy by 2020, we're expected to exceed that goal, which is just really expensive as we're designing our buildings. The other thing that we're doing to compete for funds is really integrating other types of amenities. So I mentioned bike lanes and sidewalks. A lot of our projects have free transit passes, which is good for the county transit provider or the city because it helps their ridership levels. But again, that just increases the costs of those projects. So it is expensive. The benefit of having a project constructed is that we own and operate it and keep it affordable for 55 years. So we like to view it as an expensive upfront proposition that will yield 55 years of high quality affordable housing. So we think the cost benefit analysis pays off, and it's worth constructing those units. And really that's the only way to start chipping away at the homeless challenge and the lack of affordable housing. But you're absolutely right. When you see the numbers, it's astounding. We continue to collaborate with lawmakers for CEQA reforms, by right revisions, and educating all our funders about the energy components so that we can just meet Title 24 and not exceed those requirements. So it's a matter of ongoing education and working with our law.
So affordable housing is expensive.
Yeah, and that's very helpful, Betsy. I appreciate those comments. And, you know, you talk about the 55 years of affordability. And so from a county perspective, I look at it as an investment as a county to apply for these funds to compete with these other same-sized counties to invest in affordable housing for the future of our residents in our county. And again, I thank you because I think self-help's a very, very valuable partner in so many different ways. Real estate's just one of them, and housing is just one of them. But just wanted to make the point because I think that as lawmakers convene roundtable discussions and talk about we've got to build affordable housing, we have to address the housing shortage in the state of California. Well, when you're mandated as a government to build affordable housing at prevailing wage, exceeding Title 24, all of these various requirements, and it costs $220 a square foot to build. I just did a remodel on my house, and I got bids, but one of the contractors, the contractor I ended up going with, I ended up getting it constructed for $135 a square foot. That's a very significant difference for the same end product that we end up getting, right? So I just put that out there so that our constituents, the people are aware that we have to be mindful of what drives the cost of construction in the state of California, even when it comes to creating affordable housing to resolve and address the homeless situation we're dealing with. So, just a point and a tangent, sorry.
No, I think it's well worth noting. Any other comments, questions from the board, members of the public? And I think the CEQA exemption is noted, and when we have our legislative platform discussion, I think that's very worthwhile to have in our efforts as well to seek exemptions wherever possible to help reduce some of our costs. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we approve this request.
I second.
Moved by Supervisor Shucklian, second by Supervisor Valero. Cast your votes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
This concludes the open session portion of the meeting. Council, is there a need for closed session?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Items A through H will be heard in closed session, and I do expect an announcement out.
Is there any public comment on any closed session item? Seeing none, we'll now adjourn into closed session.
All right, there's a report out on closed session, item D. The Board of Supervisors authorized legal counsel to initiate litigation. The the motion was made by Super Vanderpool, seconded by Supervisor Townsend. I votes by Supervisors Crocker, Vanderpool, Shucklian, Valero, and Townsend. That's the end.